Hello and welcome to another comedian's interview for my blog Arichcomiclife. My name is Richard Gill and my blog details my experiences of watching over 800 stand-up comedians and counting over the last 45 years. My guest today is the wonderful musical comedian Mr. John Long. Yes! Hello, mate!
No, I should be clapping too, shouldn't I? Sorry.
How are you?
Rich. I'm good, mate. How are you?
Great to see you. I'm really good. I'm really good. I'm thoroughly enjoying these interviews, and I'm delighted you're here today. I'm delighted that you're my guest. The interview is going to last about 45 minutes to an hour, and it's all about your comedy career. So we're gonna go right back to the start.
Good luck getting 45 minutes.
And I'd like to ask you, how did you become a musical comedian?
Musical comedian. That's good. Yeah, I think it was because I was a real big comedy fan first for a long time, but without ever thinking of doing it really. It was just one of my things I was really, really into, and everyone knew me as, oh, John will know, he'll know if that's about comedy, and I used to do music on the side, just as a hobby, just in bands.
Right.
And then there became an opportunity through doing a few gigs in like cabaret scenes where there's comedy and music,
right,
to slightly slide into it. I didn't have the full bravery to just walk in and try stand-up, I think. So I found a way to sort of just stand near the person who was doing the comparing and say, oh, do you need any other people to do any funny songs maybe? And get in that way. So it was a way to get in.
Yeah.
And then I dropped the music for a long time because I thought I just wanted to do stand-up.
Yeah.
And then after a while I thought, no, I think I'm better with, and so brought it back. So
I think the great thing is that having something like a guitar, you've got a prop, and you can use the prop in your act, which is just great.
It just gives you something else to play with.
Yeah.
Because there is no shortage of comedians. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I think some people say, oh, I don't know about that, or I don't know like that. It's like, well, don't worry, because there'll be another one on, isn't it? And I think variety is the spice of life. So if you've got something that works for you, just go for it.
Very
I think to me a while, I was reluctant to use it, but then after a while I thought, why not?
Good on you. No, it's great.
Yeah.
I first saw you. I have seen a lot of your career at different points. I first saw
your mate John.
Well, that's great. I first saw you at the We Are Funny project, a pub in Liverpool Street, way back in 2013.
Dirty Dicks.
That wonderful name of the pub.
I used to hate promoting that to my friends. Come to Dirty Dicks. I'm like, what? No. No, I promise it's nice.
You were on many a bill that I saw, and I used to go along with John Bolton, who I used to work with.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how. That's how I knew you, wasn't it, at the beginning? Because you were very supportive of him.
He went on a comedy course, and he had to gain the experience. He went along to free comedy nights. And there you were, either comparing or doing your wonderful act. And in my mind, you stood out from all the other acts. And I thought there's something there. And it's been a joy to watch your career blossom.
That's very sweet of you.
It's my pleasure. Can you describe your first gig, please? Was it at that sort of environment? Was it just a 5-minute thing where you had to go on?
It wasn't quite, but there was, like I sort of said, I sort of sidled into it through the cabaret thing. So my first gig was at a place called, it was called Nolia's 11.
Right.
It doesn't exist anymore, sadly. But it was kind of near Ronnie Scott's, and it was kind of imitating Ronnie Scott's,
right,
basically slightly cheaper Ronnie Scott's. And it was run by this wonderful family who were all sort of in the entertainment business. One of them was married to a chef, so he was the chef. One of them was married to a guy who was like made the cocktails. It felt a very family organization.
Right.
And they used to run these great mixed bill sort of nights where they'd have jazz singers and things like that. And then they had someone who I was performing with, a friend of mine called Kate, who was a sort of a kind of faux jazz singer, but she was also a bit weird and odd. So she worked well on sort of cabaret bills.
Sounds great.
She was brilliant. She was great. She was a bit like Anthony and the Johnsons. I'm saying it.
Very
but
cool.
That kind of vibe, slightly weird, bit of Kate Bush in there. And she used to play piano, and we were her backing band, me and a couple others. And so doing those gigs, we did them quite regularly, and she used to have compares and comedians, and she was struggling to find comedians. And I think she'd gone to book one off just like a comedy forum on Facebook and hadn't vetted them, and one of them had been quite racy and done some pretty near the knuckle stuff, and didn't read the room very well.
No.
So she's like, I'm not going to book any more comedians. Do you know any? And I lied and said, oh, I do a bit of comedy, and I've been working on a couple of songs, and I did those in that environment for a little bit first. And then I got a taste for it, and then I started doing gigs where I met you.
Yeah.
Without the guitar, though.
No.
When I met you, I wouldn't have been doing
guitar. So what sort of year are we talking about with your first gig?
It would have been about not long before I met you.
Right. So about 2012, 2013, something like that.
Yeah, it was 2013, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the beginning, May, I think it was 2013. Yeah, because it was 8 years.
I know. Yeah, time flies. So you were flying along, doing loads and loads and loads of gigs. You must have in your mind what is your best gig and what is your worst gig. There must have been difficult ones along the way. I don't know. I mean, but I am presuming there may be.
there's a huge variety. That's what's brilliant about it. Sometimes you just have to think about some of the different bizarre situations that have occurred. I really cringe when I think of some of the early ones, because I really was very bad at it at the beginning.
No, I don't believe that for a minute.
I think, like you said there, like maybe there was a little something where you thought, well, he's got a bit of something about him, maybe, but I certainly hadn't got the knack of writing material. No. Well, I could do songs, but the jokes were a bit hit and miss at the beginning, to say the least. And so, there was a lot of deaths early on that I can think about. The worst one I can think about, just because it made me just go, oh, why am I doing this? Was one where I did a few gigs that were, it was called Comedy for Boarders.
Right.
And it was gigs at the most prestigious, expensive boarding schools in the country.
Right. And
they ship in comedians like jesters for these rich kids. And some of them are insane. Like there was one of them had its own helipad. And I was doing a bit of crowd work with one of the teachers. I said, what do you do? And he said, fencing. And I said, oh, you're the PE teacher. And he went, no, just the fencing coach. And it was what? And he had a cricket coach sat next to him. He was just the cricket coach. And he was a former international player. And it was like, where am I? And sometimes there were big, huge 30-foot paintings of Wellington and things like that. And you're performing in these palatial halls to these apathetic teens who couldn't give a shit. Well, that's a lie. If it was at that age, basically, the gigs came down to, if it was an all-girls school, the gig would be all right. Because by 14, they were kind of mature, and they were essentially young adults, and they would listen, and they might not like you, but it was polite. If it was a mixed bill, it was a bit of aggression from the boys, obviously, but the girls kept them in check. And the all-boys schools, we just went, oh, these are going to be write-offs. And they were just animals, these rich boys. And they treated us like playthings. And there was one gig that I was hosting, and I just couldn't get anything going with these kids, and they hated me. And I was walking back to the station because I don't drive.
Right.
And it's out in the middle of nowhere. I'm walking along, and I'm trudging through the thing. And then I hear this car come behind me, and I step out of the way so I don't get run over. And it's like a Mitsubishi, brand new. And a window comes down, and one of the kids, who's obviously allowed out on leave, one of the 17-year-olds in his first car, winds the window down. He goes, "You were shit, mate." And then speeds off. And I just thought, why am I doing this? Why am I doing it? And it was such a long journey home. And in hindsight, I find it, I think that person, but the thing is, I tried to memorize his face, but I thought he's going to be someone someday. One day he's going to be like the Chancellor of the Exchequer. And I go, he called me shit once. And it'll be a story.
Exactly.
It'll at least be a story. But that was my lowest moment. And that's when I think about the fact I survived that. I think if you kept going after that, you probably you're going to be determined to do this at this point.
Well, that's a reason why the blog happen because I had a great long Excel list of comedians, and I thought, there's so many on here, there's something here, and so of course I developed it into a blog, and the blog supports variety comedians, classic comedians, as well as new talent coming up, because I
had a look. It's very thorough.
Well,
you've got a lot of names.
Try and do my best, my friend, because I regard it as an enthuse, because whenever I go and see a live act, either live or online, I've got nothing for respect, and I regard you all as heroes for making me laugh.
Oh, well, you're a gift of an audience member.
Thank
Rich.
you very much.
You're such a you're also a very generous laugher, which is good for someone that's seen so much comedy. And
it's a trademark laugh.
Because I'm a bit jaded. You know Jordan Brooks, I imagine.
Yeah, very well. Yeah.
He tweeted something once and said, they told me, what was it? I don't want to get it wrong. I'll probably get it wrong. They were saying like they told me that watching too much comedy would make me numb to that kind of feeling. But who's nodding and smirking now? You know what I mean? Like I feel like that sometimes. That's my best response to everything. Is all I can manage when I really love something now is just too much.
Yeah. No, I whenever I go to a live comedy gig, I go and I'm determined to enjoy myself, and that is it. I mean, way back for me, when I first went, we first went as a family in the first year. In about 1976, I saw Les Dawson and Tommy Cooper in the same year, and they were incredible. And I thought, there's something here. This is fantastic, and I've just been hooked ever since. So as I was writing this list, just getting all these amazing comedy heroes coming in, and I'm thinking, there's something here. So well,
that's great, because I think that what you're doing will be, an archive, and you want the person archiving it to be a fan of the thing, because you want it to be lovingly put together. You don't want someone who's just fucking, oh god, more of this.
No, I used to do that in the past, filing, and I never liked it. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about your competitions. You were a runner-up at the Brighton Fringe's New Act of the Year in 2015, and you were winner of the Comedy Store King Gong, an audience favourite act winner at the Musical Comedy Awards, both in 2016. Describe these experiences of entering a competition. What did you feel like when you entered it, and when
I'll be honest, I really hated that side of development, like the competition thing, and it really did seem like it was a necessary evil, and no one liked it really. There was a few people who were very good at it who probably liked it, but I found the whole thing incredibly stressful, and I entered kind of all of them to varying degrees of success, some of them not very good at all, and I was far too inconsistent to do very well, but every now and then I would do okay in some of them, and it would be okay. The Brighton one was interesting because I don't live in Brighton, and I never have. So there was a bit of contention there, because the person organising it, who runs gigs in Brighton and runs a comedy course and things, she had booked people that she had liked and seen on the scene in Brighton.
Right.
And just to fill it out a bit, a few more of the heats, she'd asked a promoter in London she knew, and said, do you know a few people you can give us? We're just struggling a bit for numbers, and we want to keep the competition going. So he sent over like 6 or 7 names, and we all went over together, and the winner was Yuriko Katani, and I came second. And so they were a bit pissed off, I think, the Brighton locals, that we'd traded in, took all the prizes and fucked off. But what I will say is that competition was we had a nice atmosphere to it, and I met a bunch of people I really liked there, and I love gigging in Brighton, and now I live in Croydon, which is quite easy to get to Brighton. Yeah. So I loved it in that I met a bunch of people who I'm still friends with now, and I sort of gig with because of that. So that was nice. They don't usually do a runner-up prize.
No.
Normally. And the reason they did it was because I'd gone on, and it was one of the rare times I did all right, and I just had a run of good gigs. And if I was feeling confident, it would go okay. It was all confidence back then. and that would wane and whatever. And this one had gone very well, and I was sure I was going to win it. And then last was Yuriko Katani, and I'm sure you've seen Yuriko.
Yeah.
She was just something else. And there was, I think, a feeling in the room. I think the judges kind of went, oh, I think this guy's won it, the guy with the guitar. And then Yuriko came on, and there was a feeling of, oh, poor guy with the guitar. No, that's won it. And so I think that feeling was so universal that they called together and they grabbed like a bottle of sparkling Prosecco and went, and runner-up, and gave me that as a concession to, you nearly won it. But she was just, and it was really sweet because I don't drink. So the train back, me, Yuriko, a couple others who got to the final, and Sophie, who's it that we bumped into on the way? Gosh, I've forgotten her name. She's quite a famous comedian as well. Sophie.
Sophie Duker?
Not Sophie Duker, who's very funny. She's Danish. Sophie Hagen.
Hagen, yeah.
Sophie Hagen had been doing a show in Brighton and was just on the train as well. And the MC of the gig, Damo, the Australian comedian, was in the show. He was on the train. And I said, I don't drink. Do you want this carver? And they went, yeah, sure. And then someone else had some alcohol. So it became a bit of a party on the train. It was really fun. So that was one of the nicer experiences.
Yeah. The
King Gong one is just a savage experience. And I went into that, again, I was quite lucky where I was quite early on in the bill. And there was 2 or 3 very new comedians on who they just gonged off in a minute. And then they would, and there comes a point where they get a bit bored of gonging people off. And I think they're like, okay, can one of you do it now? And so I came in at that point and was very confident and came on with the guitar, and they thought, oh God, get the gong ready. And because I didn't fuck about and I went straight into my, best song, they just sort of went, oh, all right. And has a sing along, so it got them going. And then they went, oh, okay, we like that. And then the gig went on, and another guy did very well, a guy called Nelson, who I'm still friends with. And he was like actually probably better than me. And in the clap off, it was really tight. But the problem is, the reason I won it is no one told him in the gong show is that all the people got gong come forward and you do 1 minute extra. And that's how they decide. And he didn't know that, but someone had told me. So I was ready. I had my minute planned. And he just got given the microphone and stumbled around for a minute. And I went, right, my turn. And so it was just by luck and knowing the game a bit better. But
that's brilliant, though.
Yeah.
We're gonna come on to Edinburgh in a minute, but before that, I'm going to tell you a story which I've told many a comedian on this interview, where I've actually had to go at stand-up myself. It's not just watching it, although that's what the story was. I did a gong show at the Edinburgh
first
Fringe.
gig.
Yeah, not King Gong at the Comedy Store, but it was.
Yeah.
I know the guy who runs the Free Fringe, or I did way back. I first went to Edinburgh in 2005, and I said to him, I want to get this out of my system. I see a lot of comedians. I think I'll be quite good. I'd like to go at the Gong Show, please. And he said, well, we've got one going in the Haymarket, which is for old folk on a Monday afternoon. And if you're not very good, they get gonged off. You get gonged off. I went, right. So I wrote this script about being accident prone in a car, because I used to drive very badly everywhere around Carlisle, which is my home city. And I read this to him, and he said, this is fantastic. You'll be really good. And I walked out, and to ease the opening line, to get the audience in, there was 3 people in the crowd. And I went, hello, ladies and gentlemen. People think I look like Eddie the Eagle Edwards, the ski jumper, but I can't see the resemblance myself. And I thought I was going to get a reaction like you just did. And the old bloke at the back went, sod off, and got me off. So I walked up to my footsteps, and the promoter said, no, have another go later, have another go. So I went on again. I lasted a bit longer. But I thought, and that's why I'm saying you're all heroes, because I said to him, I think my place is in the audience. Never say never again. I'll support them forevermore. So winning the King Gong, winning it is. It wasn't
fantastic. My first gig though, Rich. If it was that same gig, there is always every King Gong someone who goes for their first gig, and it's because they go to the Comedy Store and they put it up on the adverts on the break. So someone's gone along, had a great time, thought, I'd love to give this a go, sees that and books in when they're drunk. And those people get savage. And someone should have told them on the way in, no, don't do that. This is not your first gig. It was something like my 50th gig, Rich. Like, it wasn't my first gig. So what I would say to you is, don't judge it by the three.
No. As I say never again. But I am very happy in the audience watching you all.
Okay, but just don't judge the whole.
No, not at all.
We'll find you a nice friendly one to start you on.
Because when John Bolton, I used to go along with him. I sat. I must have saw his act about 15 times, and it was the same material. And he always used to say to me, "Sit in the front row, and you know when to laugh."
You've had a lot of practice
but good
now.
luck to him, because he's now running a comedy club in Abu Dhabi.
Did you go to Abu Dhabi?
Was it Abu Dhabi or Dubai or somewhere like that?
It's the one that's just next to Dubai.
Yeah. And he's still a teacher. But he's now co-running a comedy club, which is incredible. Anyway, cool. Enough of that. Let's move on to the Edinburgh Fringe. I go to the Edinburgh Festival every year for my holiday. I'm very lucky to go there. I've been going for the last 15 years, and I first went in 2005. Can you tell me about your first Edinburgh Fringe experience, please? My first I went to was probably in 2009 or 10, I think it was. Right.
I could dig it. I'm sure I should have. I've still got the brochure. I'm sure of it.
Brilliant.
Because it was really meaningful experience. Because before that, I hadn't been to very much comedy. I've been to a little bit, but not as much as I should have done, given how much I was into it. And I don't know what was scaring me off a bit. I think the only stuff I'd been to was kind of like tour shows when anyone came by relatively near, like Dara Brian.
Yeah.
Like I saw Tim Vine because he came to like an art centre nearby.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But I'd never been to like a comedy club or seen very much of it. And when I came to London, I did go to the Comedy Store, and that really blew my mind. And I was obsessed with comedy. And it's weird I didn't go more. But then I just thought, I kept seeing the Fringe every year, and it always pops up in the news, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, that's built for me. I love comedy. That seems great. And one year I just thought, I'm going to go for just a weekend, and I've got family that live not far away. And I stayed with them, and I went in, and it was like this huge revelation moment where I realized, like, everyone here is as much of a nerd about comedy as I am.
We're not nerds.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I guess it's like what Comic-Con must be like if you've been really into something and you arrive and go, my people. You know what I mean? So it felt that way to me, because before then, I think all my friends were into music, and I'd be in bands and things. And the way they talked about music, I was into music and I like bands. But when they got really into the minutiae, they slightly lost me a little bit. And I was like, sure. It was lost. The finer details were a bit lost on me.
Yeah.
But then that's how I felt about comedy. And if you started me on that, as you can see, I have a bit of a problem with stopping talking. So when you got me started on comedy, and so that's when I realized, that's kind of how I feel about comedy, I guess. But there was no one really to talk to about it. And when I went there, I was just like, everyone here is as much into it as I am.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful. And I saw, I think, 1,000 shows in 3 days. And
wow.
And it was just, I just saw as many as I could. And it was great. I remember getting up every day, going to the cafe, reading the brochure, and we were picking out what we wanted to see and talking about it, and just loving the experience. And I saw some people who I ended up, getting to know. So I remember seeing a very early split bill of Sarah Callahan and Harriet Kemsley.
Brilliant.
At the newsroom, which I ended up playing in as well.
Yeah.
And I remember the experience of like going, because we were like, what's going to be on? Oh, that's near where we're staying. And then go, and they'd done a YouTube trailer. That's what got us in. And we were like, let's do that. And really liking it and thinking, I'm sure they'll go places. And ended up, one of my first gigs was at the Cavendish Arms, and Harriet was at the embassy, I think.
Yeah.
And then I ended up knowing Sarah and getting to know her. And sometimes I'll be at a sort of party with her and go, it's really weird, this. So I loved it. Everything about my first Fringe is really imprinted on my memory, because it was a very, very... vivid 3 days. So
it is an incredible experience. As soon as I step off the train at Haymarket, the atmosphere just hits you. And as I say, I go for a week. I get through about 50 shows, and it's just incredible.
That is a
I
feat.
see plays, I see mostly comedy, I see music, and the variety of the acts that are on there is extraordinary.
There really is something for everyone. That's what, like, when people are there and they're like, "What should I see?" And I was like, "Well, get the brochure, because you'll be able to flick through and you'll find something really odd and weird that's strangely for you." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's brilliant.
Oh, there's a whole show about my love of stationery. Like, oh yeah, I've always loved stationery.
Yeah, it is. It is brilliant. When I was there, I've seen your shows Troubadour and Planet Killing Machine.
And Troubadour was at the newsroom.
Yeah,
so I heard it.
Yeah. I wanted to move on about where you get your ideas from and describe how you write and structure a show. Have you got a way of doing that, or?
I'm still learning that skill a bit, right. and experimenting with it. And that's what's great about Edinburgh, is that you could do these trials.
Yeah.
You know, because you've got the same room every night at the same time, so the audience has changed, but the variables are set, you know, and so you can experiment and change every night and tweak it. And to be honest, I never really got the full knack of it, but I
disagree.
Well, I try where possible to try and get the balance between, I guess the three elements involved are some songs, some jokes, and some audience interaction.
Yeah.
And I think of those three, my joke writing is my weakest skill. And so I often have to work quite heavily on that. And so sometimes, especially at the beginning, because I thought to myself, this is the development period. This is where no one really is paying attention. This is the time to fail. This is where you should be working on your weaknesses, kind of thing. So I spent a lot of time working on that, and I'm slowly getting better. But trying to balance the three, I think some people wish I did more songs. Other people, not very many people, don't wish I did. Wished I did more jokes. But I think some people wish I did. I don't know. Sometimes I just get the balance wrong. But if I can when it works well, there's a fine balance between making everyone feel very comfortable and inclusive, and chatting to a lot of people, quite relaxed, and then here's a song every now and then to punctuate it, you know. And it hopefully can make it fly by relatively quickly.
One of the things that I think you're extremely good at is you're very easygoing on stage. So you're very, very good at bantering with the audience, at chatting to them, and that makes them welcome. That makes them like you, and you can take it from there. And whenever I've seen you, I've always noted that, and I think that's a great skill to have.
Oh, well, thank you, Rich. It is definitely something I try to... Well, I think it's definitely not a facade or something. I think that's pretty. It's a side of me. I'm definitely not as affable as I am on stage all of the time, but on stage, the side of me that comes out is relatively... I am very keen. I'm a bit of a people pleaser, but I'm very keen for everyone to enjoy it, because I remember being a punter so much.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I'm quite socially anxious. So I'm just very keen. I really want to talk to everyone, but at the same time, I'm keen not to. Some people really hate being spoken to. So I've tried to be as much as I can quite aware of how everyone's feeling. It sometimes tips the balance, and like my girlfriend, who sees the show often, she'll often say to me, like, "You've got to just sometimes you keep." As you can tell, if you don't stop me talking, I will talk forever. And I can get
really
lost.
I'm really glad you're here being interviewed.
I'm the worst, matey, honestly. Especially in lockdown, because I haven't seen anyone apart from a postman and my girlfriend in a while.
Yeah.
As soon as you ask me questions, you're getting a week's worth of answers, I'm afraid. But I think sometimes I can go cut down a loophole, you know, get too focused on something and lost.
I think certainly being able to write and sing songs like you do, as well as chat to folk. If you want to talk to everybody, what's better place than in a song?
Yeah.
You know, and because they do recognise that format much more, I think, if you can do it, than just chatting. Chatting can be very, because you're right, not everybody wants to be spoken to, and if you get a very difficult audience who don't want to talk to you, you can quickly change. You can quickly run out of ideas and change tack and have to go. The good thing is, as I say, is that you've got the guitar and you've got the songs as a backup.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
which is a great thing. How do you approach writing a song? What do you like to write about? Is it just everyday life, things that happen to you?
I think I struggled with this for a long time. I think it's a half the battle is picking the right topic.
Yeah.
And I think a comedy song anyway is a bit like a comedy sketch.
Yeah.
It should be about one idea, and it should be quite simple. You should be able to describe it in a sentence. So you can say, "What's the song about?" And if you go, "Well, it's kind of about this thing," where it's too complicated. You know what I mean? And so it does, because comedy, especially stand-up comedy, live, you're communicating to a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And you need to get your ideas across. And like you said, everyone's different. Some people visualize things differently. We've all got different backgrounds, so we've all got different reference points. So it's hard enough to communicate to those people. Don't overcomplicate it, for heaven's sake. That's why the key with comedy is keep it
Good point.
simple. Keep it simple. You want to communicate this funny idea in as simple a way as possible. And my big failing has always been, I can see what I mean in my head. Why can't you? And I talk very fast, and sometimes I'm like, why didn't that work? And someone will say, well, I didn't really get what you were talking about, you know. So with a song as well, I think that my failing is always making it too complex. So the best ones are always very simple.
Yeah.
What's your song about? It's about the weird things I found in a recycling centre when working at a recycling centre.
Yeah.
Bang, it's a sentence, you know. What's the song about?
It's a great song.
My hatred of joggers. Well, it's my oldest song, and and I've got songs that come and go, and it seems to not go. And I think that's because sometimes when you first do something, you inadvertently crack it on the head first time without, and then you overthink it after that. I wasn't overthinking it. I knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I think, but then since then, I've written a few that stayed. And I think the best ones are always the ones that are simple, I think.
Yeah.
So
that is a great answer. Fascinating. Whenever I see you on stage, you're very laid back, and as I say, you're very genial. Do you suffer?
I'm just stoned, Rich, mate.
Yeah. Do you suffer from any nerves before going on stage, and how do you cope with them, if you do?
Yeah, well, it's hard not to say I get stoned, but it's one of my coping strategies. In fact, you'll have to forgive me. I didn't realise that this was a filmed, so I wouldn't have smoked quite so near this and ended up with so much red eye. What are you going to do?
That's a great answer.
No, but I don't want to. I'm being flippant there. I don't rely on that naturally, and I make sure because I am someone that does use that. I don't use it for performing because it stops you being a bit sharp. So the way I deal with nerves is purely I've done it enough, and I used to really hate public speaking, and I knew I wanted to do it, but I was terrified of it. And through doing it lots, and it used to be I had to drink to get through it, but now I don't drink. But luckily I'd done it enough. I built up enough courage, but it was very terrifying at first. But just through doing it, and it used to be pre-COVID in London, I was doing between 4 and 6 gigs a week for years. And between that and doing some teaching, it's just doing it enough, I think, sometimes. If it's not natural to you, which public speaking doesn't come naturally to me, you just have to do it over and over again. There's no shortcut.
I think though it is with comedy in general, it is all experience. The more you do, the better you are at it. It's like anything. I am with you with public speaking. I don't mind doing it, but it took me a very long time to actually think I could get up and do it. I always remember we had to do a training course, and you could talk about anything you liked for 5 minutes. So I talked about my favourite comedians, Morecambe and Wise, and I thought this is fail-safe because, again, you're a perfect audience where you just think of them and smile. So I did I did the dance, I did the whole career of them, and at the end of it, there was a question and answer session, and somebody put their hand up and said, "I hate Morecambe and Wise." And I was mortified, and the trainer went, "Thank you, never presume everything's positive.
That was your posh kid in a Mitsubishi, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like I'd never met anyone who disliked them, and it's a fascinating thing because when I go to a comedy night, I'm not there to hear hecklers or put downs or anything. I'm there to hear the act, but it all depends on the audience that you've got, that will determine the gig. So,
well, some people, some people's humour is about that. But even there's a time and a place. Like, imagine in that setting thinking, I'm just going to tell him how much I hate Walker. What you fucking tell, mate?
You weren't there, were you?
I hate the guy. I would have lamped him. No, I'm joking.
No, they are the best.
I'm a coward. So certainly not very hateable either. That's what I mean.
It is. It's like, you're not there to hear. Certainly on a comedy night, you're not there to hear heckling. There's a famous story where I was in the audience. It was Ricky Grover at Headliners Comedy Club, and there was a really horrible heckler in the front row, and he stopped his act. He jumped down and he threw them out. He just threw them out, and when he came back on, the promoter knew he was an ex-boxer, so he came back onto the Rocky theme, and he's doing it all, and they gave him a standing ovation. It was wonderful. Well, that's exactly it,
Well, in a way, I'm thinking, what a brave fucker to heckle Grover. What are you thinking?
Exactly.
He's a very gentle guy, but he looks like he'd still tear your head off.
But again, even if you'd never seen him, you would think that. But again, I think they didn't know who the comedian was going to be, and they were just
right. And then their worst nightmare comes. Love it.
How do you remember all your songs and routines? Do you write them down? Do you have them on your hand? Are you good memory?
I've not got the best memory in the world, for obvious reasons. But I've learned how my memory works anyway over the years. So I just know that with anything, with songs, it's all just muscle memory, particularly with the songs. And so you just need to do it over and over and over again. So I just have to do it in my room. I'm always very terrified about doing a song for the first time because a lot of the laughter in songs comes from the rhythm of it and the delivery of it. And so, like all jokes, actually, if you stumble over your lines just before you do the punchline, it's the same with a song. If the guitar's a bit off and you're singing it slightly off, it doesn't get the laugh. So I do, for a long time before I do it, I just have to be annoying in my room, my poor girlfriend, and just sing the song over and over and over again. And that's really the only way to do it, particularly with ones where they're quite wordy. Now, I don't like reading things, so I just record it.
Yeah.
And then I just listen over and over again.
Right.
Which is horrible because I hate my voice, but it's the only way.
It's all experience, isn't it? Doing it over and over and over again.
Yeah. And you just learn. I think everyone learns exactly over time. Everyone learns the secrets of their brain and like how to trick themselves into.
To date, what has been your comedy highlight?
Comedy highlights. Well, I get them quite a bit really because I've always had relatively modest kind of ambitions in terms of. I've really not got a sense of I want to be a star about me at all. Even when I would like music, I'd have much rather have been in a weird band that some people liked. And I think that's the way about comedy is that there's stuff I want to do and things, but I've got no real desire to be on TV or anything. And so all of my ambitions was stuff like, I used to say to myself, God, if I could just play. I remember being at the Comedy Store for the first time and just thinking, I just wish I could experience what he's experiencing right now. Just getting a laugh from that room. Yeah. It feels so great in here. I'd love to feel what he feels. And then I got to do that once and it felt amazing. And I remember thinking, well, this is kind of, anything more than this is a bonus, really. I just wanted to be a jobbing comedian. That's all I ever wanted. And sometimes I gig with people who are brilliant. And like I was gigging, I remember gigging with Lou Sanders relatively early on and just being like, oh, fucking hell. And being a huge fan of hers. And then getting to know her a little bit, not like I was a friend, but just like to the point where she was like, oh, hiya, John. And I was like, oh, fucking hell. Like, one of the comedians now. And even sometimes I still have a lot of imposter syndrome, but when you're doing gigs with people or, you have to remind yourself, this is, you know, you're living the dream you had, because I had those modest ambitions. So I really have a lot of them, really. And they're always little small things, like where you're gigging with someone you really admire. Or recently, actually, in lockdown, I'd missed gigging so much, and I still miss it so much. And I had a gig in Brighton on the beach, and all of the people there was quite a lot of people there, and they were all singing along, and they all did that thing where they put their torches on their iPhone.
Yeah.
And I almost fucking cried, Rich, because I just missed it so much. And it was such a nice moment. I think I've got a video of it on my Instagram because someone filmed it. And that was one of them, just because I was like, and at the end, I think I ended by going, thank you so much. I really missed this.
It's so good because obviously if a show goes well and you get laughs, it must be the biggest high in the world, because you think, well, I wrote that and this is fantastic and I'm having a great time. And two, because my next question was, what ambition do you have, if any, as a comedian? It's a similar question. I was going to ask you, do you want to be on TV? Do you want your own show and all this? And as my guess is, if the opportunity came along, then obviously yes, but you're just perfectly happy at the moment being a superb jobbing comedy musician.
I don't say superb. That's nice of you. I am.
Sorry, I got the wrong word.
But that's very nice of you. I certainly feel the opposite. Sometimes I do feel always like a bit like stuck by on a bit of charm and a bit of whatever. But I don't feel necessarily like the funniest comedian in the world. But I do feel like I'm on a trajectory where I'm learning how to do it. And all I would just like is to get to a point where I'm just, because live, sometimes there are gigs live, particularly in Edinburgh, where there have been one or two where I've been like, that's what I want to do, you know, and it's happened. And I'd just like to go to a stage where I can consistently get to a point where I'm very, very proud of the work. And it's, because at the moment, most of the time I'm like, oh, that's not quite what I wanted. And maybe that doesn't ever go away, but my big ambition is to get a small enough following, maybe, that you could do a tour maybe here or there would be brilliant. I think that would probably be my ambition.
Well,
I would love to do
I was going to say your Planet Killing Machine solo show was superb, but so was Troubadour. But Troubadour, was that like a work in progress, if you like, for you to see if you could do it, or because there were two separate shows in themselves and they were both excellent. All my friends who I brought along all were raving for you. So
that's really nice of you. It was so nice of you to come along both times as well.
Pleasure.
And I did one the year before as well. That was again about 40 minutes as well, so it was almost a full show in itself. Look, I've had a lot of practice at it, and I think my findings have been that I enjoyed the Troubadour one more.
Right.
Because it was late and it was on the free Fringe, and anyone could turn up, and it felt a bit more like...
It was about 11:30 at night, wasn't it? And we had a few beers afterwards. It was great.
Exactly. But sometimes it was a bit of a gamble, and there was some drunk... And actually, one of my skills is audience management.
Yeah.
I've got audience management naturally built in, maybe from some teaching long time. You can control some 6-year-olds, you can control drunks, they act in very similar ways, and then so that played up to my strengths more. I did find when I was in the Planet Killing Machine, it was in a room where everyone had paid, it had a ticket, and it felt very official. And it was brilliant. It was brilliant because I felt more legitimate in a way.
That's a big deal, though, isn't it? Because they have paid, and the
I felt like it lost a bit of the magic for that.
Yeah.
I felt I was more under pressure from myself and wasn't enjoying it as much.
Right.
Probably could tell from an audience perspective. I don't think it was bad, but I don't think it was my best work. And it was a bit of a shame because I remember that's the one that people came to see obviously a bit more. And Alan Davis, who I was a big fan of as well, came in to see it because he's a bit of an environmental guy, and he was very sweet about it. But I just remember thinking, I wish you'd come along and see me when I was a bit better. You know what I mean? I didn't feel like it was a very fair reflection of me. But then that was just because I think I hadn't worked out how to replicate that sense of that atmosphere in that setting, and that's something I guess I'll learn over time, hopefully.
So we're all living in weird, strange times at the moment. Have you done any online gigs? Do you like online gigs as opposed to live gigs?
I don't mind them. Yeah.
Have you done some?
Yeah, I thought I was going to dislike them more than I do.
Yeah.
Actually. Like, it depends. I think at the beginning, when no one had worked it out yet, it wasn't great.
Yeah.
It was the classic sort of veggie burger problem, which is that sometimes veggie burgers, well, it used to be, now they're actually very good at replicating meat, but it used to be, they were shit at it. And
Same with online comedy.
They would always try they would always try and be meat, and you were like, it just tastes awful. You never. And you kept thinking, and then you would try one where it was just like, it was green and it was just vegetables and it was clearly just trying to be as nice a veggie burger as it could be. And you're like, well, that's really nice. It's not beef, but it's its own thing. It's trying to be itself.
Yeah.
And people had to do the same thing with online gigs. At the beginning, everyone was like, let's replicate real gigs. And you had to say to them, you're never going to replicate real gigs.
No.
And so they were like, oh, welcome in. And now, and they did all the things that you would do at live, and you had to just play to your strengths. And now the ones that are successful are the ones that still integrate people by way of the comments or have a front row and have found a way to keep it interactive, but just know how to format it for online, you know, and it's got its own pros and cons.
Yeah.
I think it's great for people who maybe have got access issues. There's a lot of people who are maybe put off going to comedy.
Yeah.
Maybe they're quite frightening places, you know, often like in a weird pub basement somewhere. So it's very accessible. And I think they're here to stay a bit once live comedy's back. I think people are going to be desperate to go back to it. It's like the good online gigs will stay, I think.
I personally think they're an excellent substitute, but for me, you can't beat live. When I go to Always Be Comedy, the comedy club in Kennington, every week just about, because it's built it up so good that
been here a long while, hasn't it?
Yeah, I've been going for 5 years to that. But I also go to the Return of the Crack, Jarlath Regan's Irish one on a Friday night, and I go to Sean James's.
He's very funny.
Oh, it's great, really, really good. And when they do it well, it is very good. But certainly online, the first few that I went to, there was no audio. So I would just sit here and laugh with my very loud laugh, and I'd get neighbours banging on windows because they didn't know what was going on. And then they opened up the audio, and it was so much better. But I do really, really miss going for a few beers on a Saturday night and then a comedy night. And I hope to God it comes back, because you can't social distance in them. It doesn't work. You need the atmosphere.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that everything that makes a good comedy club is very anti-social distancing. Low ceilings, stuffy room.
I mean, if we didn't have the online comedy, I don't know how we'd have got through the lockdown, because, of course, everybody's bored out their mind. Of course, the blog has
There's been some really good ones, and some people have really embraced it. And I think the people, especially the things like Twitch, and you've got, like, there's a bunch of, loads of examples of comedians that have used that really well. And played to their strengths. So I think that's part of the, you know, if
it's good, it's there, but it's not the same. I don't think
it's not the same.
No.
But yeah.
Who are your favourite comedians, past and present?
Past and present.
Who makes you laugh?
My favourites when I was always starting was David O'Doherty was one of my favourites.
Brilliant. Yeah.
When I was growing up, me and my sister had a mutual love of Billy Connolly.
Oh, what a master!
It's how we bonded, basically. And we've got Scottish. Our mum's Scottish, and that whole side of the family is Scottish, and we just really like Billy Connolly. And but we weren't allowed to watch him because it's obviously he's very sweary.
Yeah.
And but we had all our VHSs were in a cabinet under the TV, which was, you know, when TVs were 3D, they went back a bit. And it was a unit. It was so heavy. Even it wasn't that big, but it was dense. And when our parents went out, we went, as soon as they were out the door and out the driveway, ran over, both of us together, lift this thing. And I think if either of us could have got that TV off on our own, we'd have been watching them on our own because we did everything else on our own. Because we had to work together as a team to get it, we had to enjoy it together, and it became our way of connecting was just through watching this same Billy Connolly DVD, which was filthy, lots of fucks and everything. It was brilliant when you're 10, and we were just obsessed, and we could quote it verbatim, and that was our beginning of our love affair, I think.
Oh, he's brilliant. I mean, I saw him later on in his career, and I was still crying with laughter at the Hammersmith Ball. He never, if he was going to do a live tour, he would always deliver. And that audience with on ITV that he did with the celebrities,
it's just flawless. That one with the trousers,
the incontinence,
the bottom,
just fantastic. Great answer. Like me, do you go to a lot of comedy gigs as a member of the audience?
Not as much as I used to.
Yeah.
But there's a couple people I always try and look out for and watch, particularly in Edinburgh. So I that's why I really missed Edinburgh. Is that was my time to kind of catch up on what people have been doing as well.
Yes, of course.
But it's nice to me. I still get to do a bit, on TV and stuff. Like I was watching Rose Masafeo's someone I've been watching at Edinburgh and really enjoyed watching her shows. She was doing Horn Dog on TV.
Yeah,
that was
right.
that night. Yeah. Watching that was great.
Yeah.
And I've been, but going to gigs and things. Yeah, I would not that many because I just do it so much. But every now and then I would. Yeah, and I'd go and see like David O'Doherty. I'd go and see on tour or Tim Key.
Tim Key's amazing. Yeah.
My friend Mark and I bond over him.
Yeah.
And so every year we try and see him.
He's brilliant. He's so original and off the wall. He's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're on a bill on a comedy night, would you stay and watch the rest of the comedians?
It depends really. Yeah. I have a lot of. I don't as much as I would like to, and it's purely social anxiety, and it's because I'm a recovering alcoholic. I think I put a lot of. I find it sometimes like I overthink. I think I'm being a party pooper after the gig, so I don't want to stick around and be like the guy not drinking, dragging everyone down. So I often leave.
Right.
Also, I just have a lot of anxiety around getting places. So my dream is to, and when I think I perform best, is when I walk into a building, go, "Hi, I'm John. Is it comedy on that?" and walk in, and then go on stage as he say my name.
Away. Yeah.
And then go, "Thank you so much," and leave. That's really horrible.
Yeah.
But that's just purely from a anxiety perspective. There's nothing personal.
Yeah.
But there are some places I feel comfortable staying, and I love sticking and watching people, and I miss doing that. And like Angel Comedy, I always try and watch people. And,
what a venue! What a perfect room that is!
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I like just standing at the back and watching how everyone does, and that's why I love emceeing. Actually, is because you have to be there from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
And not that it forces you to watch the other acts, but it does, and I always enjoy it. I never resent it. I always actually go, "Oh, I enjoyed every bit of that. That was great." I should do that more. So I do sometimes.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Just before we go,
because I'm a waffle monster.
It's fine. Is there anything else you would like to say? Have you got any online gigs coming up? Do you have any podcasts? Where can people find you on social media? That sort of thing.
I haven't got any podcasts or anything like that. If you go on my Instagram, or I think on my YouTube as well, which is all at John Long Stand Up, my Instagram, so JON, because it comes, and to make it awkward, people never find me because it's JON. That's probably the best place to see it, because I put up new songs and things throughout lockdown. I'll put up things like little videos and things like that. Yeah. But I'm not, to be honest, massive on social media. I'm not very good at that.
Right.
So not loads to find. But good luck finding it.
Well, all I can say...
If you want it, it's there somewhere.
all I can say, my friend, is that it's so good to see you again. It's been a while since we've met in real life.
I know.
I wish you every success with whatever you do, and I'm going to come and see you again live again soon. And it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It really has.
Oh, that's great. Well, even though I like to sometimes run away, I do like sticking around and having a beer with you after show. So we'll do that.
I'm looking forward to it, my friend. You take care, and all the best to you.